Hello and welcome to day 3 of International Leadership Week 2021. I'm Gaynor Lewis and I'm Director of Strategic Partnerships at the Institute of Leadership and Management. I'm delighted to be joined today by Aslak de Silva for this session exploring how to reinvent leadership by empowerment. Just before we begin, for those who are less familiar with the Institute, we're a professional body focusing on achieving our core mission of inspiring great leadership everywhere. And we do that through our engaged community of over 55,000 leaders and managers at every stage of their career and across all industry sectors and in over 70 countries. So turning our attention to Finland, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Aslak, CEO at the Nordic Business Forum, an experienced board member, author, and martial arts expert, who will be drawing on his experience to outline for us how business leaders can redefine leadership to empower teams of the future and create an inclusive culture. Please do post your questions during this session, and we'll try and address as many as possible towards the end. And without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Aslak. Over to you.
Thank you, Gaynor. Happy to be here and happy to be able to talk to you. So today I'm going to talk about empowerment and why am I here. So Nordic Business Forum is a huge scale mass event. So we have on a normal year 7,655 people in the audience traveling from 54 countries plus more than 20,000 people watching from live stream. And at the event, we actually have about 1,000 people working for us in the same team. So it's impossible to be able to do decisions in a hierarchical way. We need to be able to be effective in empowerment, and decisions have to be made there where you need to be making them. So that is why I'm here to talk to you about that, and I'm really passionate about the topic. And if you have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to answer those. So today I'll actually first want to kind of still going to go through a bit on like why is it important for us. So if you look from an OK service perspective, there are things that people know that if you, for instance, take customer service. Every one of us kind of knows that what's the OK level, and what we are driving for is at Nordic Business Forum is that we want to be excellent in that. And in order to be excellent, so we need to know what that excellence constitutes of. And today you'll be hearing a lot of things on these, like what we consider to be important and why then empowerment is important, that you actually understand what you're doing for. And just a quote from John C. Maxwell: so people may hear your words, but they feel your attitude. And that same goes with leadership. So it comes from the attitude as well. When we talk about empowerment, it's also about the attitude that you give to your team members there and show that you care. So, but let's dig in now to the real topic. So the empowerment and learn. Today I'm going to go through 5 steps. So one of the reasons I consider that empowerment as a word is important, and we all understand probably what it means, but I'm going to give you 5 steps of how to build it up in a proper way, which makes it then easier for you also now even to evaluate, and would be nice to see where do you think you are after listening to the speech or seeing the stages of this here. But the first one, the willingness to actually give power to employees. So it all starts with this. Are you actually willing to do that and give out the power, the control that you might have as a leader? I often use a sports team as an example. You have a sports team owner, and the owner actually then decides who's the general manager of a sports team. Then the general manager decides who's the coach of the team, and the coach makes the strategy for it. And then the players actually on football, for instance, they actually are the ones who are playing. And when we are actually rooting for the team, we are talking about the players. And the players, they follow the strategy, but they have to make decisions themselves. Should I run now fast? Should I try to score a goal? What do I do? Even if you have the strategy, players are actually doing these decisions all the time. And this is not so different from work life. Our team members all the time, they actually do make these decisions. They have to, like I said, how do I look, how do I feel, what I'm going to do for the customer, for instance. All these same kind of decisions are made. And if you're giving the power for people to actually be able to make the decisions on site when they are, so that's what empowerment is about. And I'm really challenging you to first think, okay, that do I actually if I was a coach of a football team, so do I let the players still make the decisions where they can make and just provide the guidelines? Am I willing really to let them play the game, or do I really want to be in control of each and every situation there and give them there? Here's an example of what we do when we have a cloakroom. So you all know when you go to an event or a theater, so you want to leave your coat there in the cloakroom. A normal level is that you are happy to get it back in a safe way. But with us, actually, customers are already expecting that they get a smile and they get treated well. And we actually tend to fix these things for them as well. If you have a broken coat or something hanger there, so we'll be able to help you out there. And we are still considering when we start the training and we are talking to team members. So we started, how can we still positively surprise these? So we share all the things that we learned from before. We share all the customer stories we've done before, and we start thinking on what can you do better. So we're just opening the minds for people that, okay, here I am. I know what people have been doing before. What can I do better? And what happens is then that people start thinking and making these things. So here are some social media posts of our event. So customers start to see that, for instance, there's Mario holding a battery there. A customer was tweeting and saying that, hey, my battery is running out. This will be my last tweet from the event. And then Maria and the teams then see that, wait a minute, the customer is running out of battery, but we have spare batteries. Why don't I take that to the customer? And she's empowered to do that, and she's understood like what we're looking for, and we were willing to give her the power that she can just actually take one of our spare batteries and give it to the customer. And if we are willing to let it happen, it can start happening. But the next one is then being able to actually empower your employees effectively. And here, delegation is something that we all are familiar with. And I'll give shortly an example of delegation. And that's really something that you need to master to be able to empower effectively. But there are other things as well. You can lead by example, helping to build the bigger picture. Why is the big picture important? So that you understand, like, where is your position? What's your role in this big picture? Then you will understand that what kind of decisions actually help for all of us to go for the target there. And a good example I'm going to throw here now, since we are virtually, but if a fire happens and you need to actually delegate the responsibility of the room for somebody, and you need to be really precise, you need to define the task. So for instance, it could go like this, that there are 10 people in the room, you have 5 minutes time to get out, don't turn left, turn right, because the fire is on the left, and right is a window where you can get out. So we're very precise on these things. Many times we consider that when I just tell them out loud, that's delegation. Super important to ask the person to be able to repeat in what question did you understand, and really ensure that you understood what it was the task to be done. And another one is that why leading by example is important, that it shows the team like what is expected. And at an event, there was a customer coming and didn't know who I was. I was like with the other customer service staff there, and she came to me and asked, where are the toilets? Being myself a customer in many huge events and attending our events as well, so I know that if I point out the customer that it's just there, so the customer still feels a bit stressed and might not find the toilet. So I said that, well, why don't I take you there and we can talk there? So customers first, well, you don't need to, but she was happy about it. Then she realized that it was actually the CEO of the company and posted on social media. Then the team got the message that the CEO is acting like that. Everybody knows immediately what to do next time. They feel super proud and they want to do the same thing. So you can lead by example and show what's actually needed there. We also, when we talk about the big picture, so we want to show them where people are in this and what's our goal. So we want to empower leaders to change the world. So we are building and talking about why this actual event is so important. And but one thing which is super important as well is giving feedback, or sometimes I call also feed forward. Doesn't need to be always negative. So feed forward can be also, but like next time don't do this. But feed forward can also be about that hey, you did these 8 things great, just keep on doing. So it gives encouragement for people and a trust that I'm actually doing the right things at the moment. Third one is actually trust, and you need to be able to trust in the motivation of your team. This is a tricky part. It sounds super easy, but of course I trust, and I trust the motivation to do that. But we tend to be still individuals ourselves, so we sometimes consider that the team members, they might have their own agenda. Why would they do this thing? So if you look at customer service people, so why in certain location they choose to smile and greet you well, and the same person in another position might not do the same thing. So, but we need to be able to trust. And the questions that I always ask myself first is that, do actually the team want to perform better or worse? So kind of like I tend to think, well, they actually want to perform better. And then I'm asking, like, how is the winning team spirit created? So winning actually is something that is contagious, and the smile is contagious. So if we start like really talking about that and building the motivation, even if motivation is always personal, it's still the leader's task to build it up in a way that everybody gets excited about the same goal. So there you go. So you start saying, I trust you, I chose you for this role, I'm really proud that you are here. So you're kind of complimenting from the positive side, which has to be, of course, true, can lie in those situations. But when you start building it up from there, it starts building and the smile starts to spread around. And we talk about a lot of what's your role in this. And we want to provide the world's best customer experience. And we all are the customer service team. Then we set the targets together. So this 5.58 out of 6 was the 2018 customer service grading that our customers gave. So 1 being the worst, 6 being the best. And we showed the team that this was what we got. And then we asked them, what's our goal for next year? And you can imagine the team, when we say that you're the best team, we trust you, there's a motivation, so that we want to be better. In the end, I will show what were the results, if they were better or not. Then is the being able to trust the ability. So of course, motivation is there. So we want to be the best team in the world, but we might not have actually the skills or the abilities to do that. And if you have any doubt that some person is not to the level of the standards that you require the person to be, it's your job to train the person to be that. So again, the coach in the team has to be able to train the people to be better. That's why in sports team, they train a lot. So they actually have the abilities to succeed. And that's super important. And it is still the leader's role to make that happen. And again, if we come back, so do we hire people for tasks or results? We tend to have tasks that need to be fixed, but actually what we want are the results. So when we are talking about the results, it's not that can you do it now, but what can you provide later on are results. So this is where the focus should be, and in the training and in the talking as well. And I do believe that experts find expert solutions. So of course, whoever is the expert will find that. So if you tell them that you're trusting them to be the expert, each of us have expertise in fields that we don't know. And if we can capitalize on their opportunities there and build the trust from ourselves forward, we will actually do a lot of great things there. One thing that I'm kind of sidetracking here, but I just want to mention, because to me this was an eye-opener when I realized it myself. Many of us have employees of the month and we chose that person, but do we choose that person just for the rewarding fun, or do we actually choose the person that this month we are gonna listen to you because you were so great? And when I actually realized myself that actually it's more important, of course the reward is important for the employee, but for the employer it's important to be able to listen to that person who was chosen to be the best. So I challenge you all from now on, whenever you have this kind of rewards, or you choose, even the team chooses who's the best person in something, or most kind of whatever, start listening to that person for those things, because that's the best expert in the company in that field. And one important thing in the empowerment, of course, are there rules, or are you empowered to act on any given situation, the benefit of the customer? Let me share a couple of examples here. President Obama was also had to speak at our event, and there was a mother with a child, and the child care couldn't come yet. It was delayed, and she was getting anxious that can she actually attend. So Nikke here saw the situation and was there. Nikke doesn't have any kids himself, but saw and said that, well, why don't you sit in these best seats here inside the seminar hall? I'm just outside taking care of your baby, and if anything happens, I can help you out and come back to you there. But I'll be here outside, don't worry, we'll be playing and it'll be fun for both of us. There is no way there could be guidebooks or rules for this kind of situation for an event industry, at least not before that. The customer was, of course, delighted, got to listen to President Obama on stage, and Nikke here was very well credited for that, and social media was just boosting with a lot of credits for Nikke here, and for us, of course. But after this situation, so we of course shared the story with others. So now we are prepared that if anybody comes there with the kids, so we are ready to help. So kind of like this happens here. But impossible for me as the CEO of the company tell the team that if this situation happens. So it was more on the mindset that you are able to actually live up with the situation. Another situation here is Katja. A lot of people come to the events and they are dressed well, and then the customer spilled coffee on her pants. Katja also works as a retail store and selling clothes, so she noticed that, well, you're about the same size as I am. She had brought her spare pants so that if something happens to her pants, so she's prepared to work and change the pants. So she told the customer that, well, why don't I give you my pants for the time? Let me fix and clean this up for the other pants, and you can just go back to enjoy the conference. She went with a taxi to city center, bought a new pair of pants because she recognized the pants, came back and told the customer, here are new pants, and the old ones that are dirty are now going to be cleaned up, so you get them tomorrow. You can imagine how the customer felt. So next day the customer came back with flowers. And again, this is very hard situation to be able to guide with rule books, but with empowerment, when you actually are acting in the benefit of a customer and you know that you can do this. I didn't ask, or nobody asked, how much did the pants actually cost. We all understood that this was in the benefit of a customer, and super happy that Katja could act on the situation and make it happen. And so this is a real life empowerment example that can happen there. The final part was the appreciating your employees, which is also super important. So when we kind of come to the end, so when we actually demand it, and empowerment is still a bit of a demandment, even though it's nice to work in an environment when you are empowered to do things. And why is this important then to appreciate? Because empowerment actually is requiring you to act beyond your basic responsibilities. We are expecting you to be able to, of course, perform to the level, to the standards that we have, but also above. And we are giving you the right to act on benefit of that. As always, small thank you gets you far. So if you're really happy, so the more you say thanks to the people, so they actually start appreciating it more and understand that I was seen when I was doing the great thing. So this is a leadership tool. And of course, true leadership comes when you appreciate people, and people actually want to work for the best leaders. So again, coming back a bit on the sport, so that of course, if you know that the coach is the best, so you want to work in the team, you want to be in the winning team. So that actually helps you to attract the best talent out there, and so on. And again, the appreciation start building trust, and which is the trust is still the basis of the leadership itself. And this is what we think when we kind of look at. So it's a seamless experience across the functions, the custom touch points that makes the difference. And this cannot be done with 1,000 people working in a huge scale event without trusting and the empowerment. And this is why we all build that up. So I said that what was the rating? So when we had the previous year was 5.58. So the customer service got 5.60 now. So even higher out of 6. And you have thousands of C-level executives evaluating this. So it's hard. And the speaker selection, you saw the speakers that we have. We have from George Clooney to Sarah Blakely, Brené Brown, President Obama, so they get a lower grading than the customer experience with this empowered team to really put effort on that. So it really pays off to be able to operate with empowerment properly. Wanted to show you a video, but I know these virtual events it's hard, or webinars is hard to show video. There's always a risk, but just want to show like how does it look like in few pictures of like when you are working a team that is empowered to and really wanting to do their best. So this is how it looks like when you're actually serving the customer and with a smile. And how does it feel to kind of start the day and together with the team, your responsibility? How good does it feel to be together when you trust and feel there that you are? And there is a video available on YouTube if you want to go for a student leadership program, and you will see like real life and comments of like how does it feel to be in this. And my only worry is that when these people go back to some other places to work, they have the capabilities and they have the skills and others. Are they allowed to do the same things? And if not, all this is lost then in that they were the best customer service team, and are they again is depending on the next leader and the next team that is there. But yeah, that was from me for here. So thank you, and back to you again.
Thank you so much. Wow, Aslak, I thoroughly enjoyed that. A whistle-stop tour, but through your 5 key steps to helping to build empowerment. Thank you very much for sharing that. And that event obviously is a significant one in your annual calendar, hopefully coming back soon. First, we've got some questions coming in, and I just want to firstly address that link between the sort of experience in the sport environment, particularly in the martial arts, and taking that into the business context. What would be the key things, do you think, that you took across from the sport environment into the business?
Yeah, well, I think sports is about people as well. Like you have a coach or your master and you're self-training or you're coaching others. So it starts with that. So it's human interaction. And I think in many times leadership, so I remember kind of realizing when I also took a leadership position that the people are not in the Excel spreadsheets. They are not numbers, they are humans. And the more you start treating, and there are individual cases and all that, so the more you pay attention to humans, and then you can actually help them to succeed. And that's, to me, is then the lead grounds of the leadership, is to help the others to succeed. And if they succeed better, you've done a good job yourself as well. So I think that's very much aligned with what's happening in sports.
Agreed, absolutely. There are a couple of questions here, and there's a really interesting one around that sort of dichotomy of actually which comes first. Should you look after the customer first, obviously to please and excite and delight, as you have demonstrated, or should you look after your employees? So this question was around almost, you know, are you looking to motivate your employees or putting the emphasis on the customer? Which comes first?
Well, I don't think it has a straightforward answer in a way, but if optimal situation would be that you take care of the employees first. But if you are in a situation where you have customers already and you need to act, so of course, then the customers are there. So you can't just leave the customer say, wait, we are just training here to be better. So that's why I would say, but the best customer experience and customer service comes when you really take care of the employees first and appreciate them and help them to be able to work better. So of course, as an event industry arranger, so when we work in that, so we always have time and we know when the customers are coming. So for us, it's easy to train and plan and be prepared. So that's why, but if you are don't want to be a coincidental, so of course employees comes first in that sense. But you can do a great job, and like I trust that any of us, if we really put effort, when customers are there, we can do a lot of great things. So it's not a requirement, but of course it helps a lot.
Absolutely. Okay, and moving that on to looking at almost the what you think is the main barrier to actually achieving empowerment and delegate through those 5 steps. What would be some of the main barriers to achieving that?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, Gaynor. Of course, I strongly believe that all of us kind of, the ones that who are tuning in, so somehow understand empowerment and kind of dream about it if it's not reality yet. But I think it's the steps is and right first really letting go of the control. It is not easy when you are first CEO of a company and kind of really saying that, well, I'll guide you, but I trust you that you make better decisions than I do. But I can promise you that it would have never occurred to my mind what Nikke was there doing when the child is there. So I would have maybe been empathetic for the customer or something, but it never occurred to my mind that, well, let me take the baby and take care of the baby. Or when Katja was there, so kind of in those situations. So I think those prove that when you let go of the control, so great things can happen. But I still think that steps are important, that you kind of are mentally prepared, but you know kind of the steps that where are we and really pay attention to that. So it doesn't start, you might get great results, but often not, by kind of telling people that you can do whatever you want. Here are my credit cards, spend money and just delight the customers. It can go great, but it can go also south. And so that's why it's a structural process. So that's why I wanted to show, like, even briefly here, the 5 steps that I consider how we have been building it up. So kind of give a guideline that it's a process like anything, and leadership is a skill. So you can develop those things a lot.
Absolutely. And this is an interesting one. There are a few questions that are linking in the theme. Somebody has sort of put, winning is contagious. They love that quote. So do I. But what about the role of empowerment in the case of lower results? And an earlier question was really looking at, how can you build empowerment maybe with people who are not performing or are not achieving those results?
Yeah, of course, like when the results are in, there's nothing you can do, but you can develop for the future. And I still strongly believe that if the results are not there, it's been a leadership issue. If you smile at a person, so how long does it take the person to smile back? It's about that. And if the person is not smiling back to you yet, so then you're not going to get the results that you want. And so I don't believe that there are people in a way that who could not perform, but there are reasons why they are not performing in your team at that stage. And then you can work with those issues then, and then everything will change to better. I strongly believe whenever you have a motivation for anything, so kind of like you want to go for the best results, and then the question is like, okay, why aren't you motivated? Maybe you are sometimes in the wrong position, a wrong role, wrong company, and that might be the case, but that's also good to find out before you kind of actually have to implement it there. But again, if you trust and show trust, show the appreciation, start smiling, talking about feet forward, like really be there, I strongly believe that with anybody you can do a better job.
Absolutely. And do you feel that there are any limits to empowerment?
Well, of course, like I mean that what is expected, it can't be something it's not achievable, and step by step moving forward. But I've been super surprised on how kind of innovative people are when they know. And the other part is that, of course, in empowerment also requires some kind of guidance. So I didn't have time to go through the delegation exercise as such, but I think that gives the scope that you can still do things, but you need to be able to talk about like, okay, about the big picture, but also the small picture, what's allowed and what's not, in a way that you understand where you're doing the decisions. A good example from our events are that we have an executive producer on stage, like running what's happening on stage. So of course anybody could like say that, hey, speaker is late, but still we need to notify the executive producer, and he's the one who's making the decisions, not anybody in there. So we need to talk about there that, hey, great, if this happens, this is actually not the place where you will make your own decision. You need to notify the other person. So kind of like these kind of rules might sound rough, but you need to have those kind of guidelines that everybody understands that where is the limit for me to make the decisions and what I'm empowered to do and what I'm not empowered to do.
Absolutely, and I think it's really important to be clear on those boundaries. Where are the boundaries? What are the limits? And also you've displayed how you would give them examples of, by your own role modeling. But having that bigger picture really does help, I think, in that example. But also, you've mentioned a new term to me today, which is feed forward. And I wondered if you could just expand a little bit more around that and what you mean by that.
Yeah, but again, coming back to the sports in a way that, like, if a coach come on a master when I was a martial artist, so saying that, hey, why didn't you made a mistake? So the purpose was not to make me feel bad. I understand, and it kind of looking at back what happened, but the reason was to develop me for the future, so kind of forward looking, and I think like when feedback tends to have the kind of a feel of criticism, that connotation that is critique, and whereas feed forward, then we start thinking maybe there were positive things as well that kind of pushes us to keep on doing that is actually feed forward, but it's not kind of a feedback kind of we feel that, well, you didn't give me any corrective actions what to do better. So that's why I tend to use that word more, and I personally feel that it kind of liberates the mind that, okay, what do we want to do in the future? So there might be a lot of great things that we're doing already now, which is then more on the feed forward than feedback. I don't know if you agree with that. Is that the difference? I'm not as native as you are with English, so I'm not sure. Can you use the term in that way?
No, I think we can definitely, and I think we will be using that term in the future, absolutely. And we're just coming towards the end, although we will have the opportunity to pick up with Aslak on our hub. But just before that, one last final question is around almost what's the biggest challenge that you've had to face in order to develop, a more empowered workforce and team?
Well, I think the biggest challenge has been me And so it's so much easier to be able to think that I can do everything, I can fix, I can kind of do it. So kind of like get rid of the I and then kind of work for the team. And then you start realizing that, why did we hire the team? And then start understanding because of what they can do is something that you can do. Sometimes it's that you need more pairs of hands, which is also great, but still you need to kind of trust and all that. So when kind of it's liberating when you understand, but it's also sometimes a bit scary when things are happening. So during the event as well, like you want everything to go well, and you know that I don't have the control anymore. But then it's all the time when you see people smiling and customers smiling and they're tweeting. So there'll be more than 10,000 tweets from our events, and mostly commenting on how great the customer experience was. So then you just smile yourself and say that this was the right.
Absolutely, and that's a great note to end on. So that only leaves me to say thank you very much to Aslak again for such an informative session today. Really appreciate that and sharing your 5 steps. To our sponsors, Belbin and Heriot-Watt University, Edinburgh Business School, and also to you for listening. Please do come across to the website. It's there for you, institutelm.com, and join us on the hub to continue that conversation with Aslak. And do again join us for further events on International Leadership Week, and tweets and messages on the social media with the hashtag ILW21. We look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much indeed. Bye.
Thank you.